Greetings and welcome to the ROI Clear podcast. This is Ray Hightower, and today we are fortunate to have as our guest Ms. Sarah Weaver. Sarah is an author, a real estate speaker, an investor. She has traveled all over the world. She's a coach and a consultant. She manages her properties in multiple states, and she embraces the nomadic lifestyle. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Sarah D. Weaver. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you, Ray. That was quite the intro. I appreciate it.
Well, we want to treat our guests very well. So you're a guest, and that means you're a big shot and you're very important. So thank you for being with us here. Thank you for joining us here today. To kick us off, we're going to ask you to give us an elevator pitch. And for those who are new to ROI Clear, Sarah is on an elevator with someone she wants to influence. And we'll ask you, Sarah, what would you say to that person in the course of an elevator ride?
Yeah. Hi. It's so excited to be here. I am Sarah Weaver. I bought rental property in the Midwest, so in the middle of the US. And what I think makes me different than most landlords is that I bought all these properties while living outside of the US. So I bought a property in Missouri from Mexico, a property in Nebraska from New Zealand. And this caught the attention of a lot of people, especially, high net worth individuals, maybe people living in an expensive market like Californians or people living in Austin, Texas. And they thought, you're telling me that I can buy something in Ohio? And then when I tell them that, yeah, you can not only buy something in Iowa or Ohio or Oklahoma, but you could buy enough real estate in 3 to 5 years and completely replace your salary. And that's exactly what I did. And so now I get to spend my life doing what I love, which is traveling the world. I'm fully nomadic, which is just a fancy word for homeless. But I'm a pretty well off homeless person. I run a couple businesses and I help people live a life by design.
Wonderful. That's powerful. And I asked you earlier, based on your background, if you were even in the States right now, and it sounds like you right now, this week, you said, yes, this week you are in the States.
Yeah, so this week I am in Kansas City. I'm actually hosting a local meetup this evening in Kansas City. Then on Friday, I fly to Orlando for Bigger Pockets or BP Con,
Mm-hmm.
probably the largest real estate investor conference of the season. And then directly after that, on Wednesday, so in exactly 7 days, I will be on a plane to Bangkok for an entrepreneurial conference. And then me and about 15 of my friends, we got an all-inclusive resort on a beach in Thailand, and we will debrief from the conference and start doing our 2024 business planning.
Excellent. Excellent. And it's good listening to you that you're living to look at what accomplished in the pre-year and then guys for the coming.
I mean, the problem with a lot of investors is that they're not treating it like a business. And so I think a lot of your listeners are, CEOs are, working in the corporate world and maybe trying to figure out what to do with their money. And I work with real estate investors of all types. Some of them are teachers or stay-at-home moms. And I think sometimes they go into real estate investing without that entrepreneurial hat, and that doesn't always serve them really well. So I really like to teach investors to look at your business like a business.
Yes. You know what? Why don't you unpack that for us? Because certainly that means something to you as an entrepreneur, and it means something to many of our listeners, but just unpack that a little bit. What does it mean when you say treat your investing like a business? What does that mean to you?
Yeah, so there's some really fun things about being an investor in the US. And there's a lot of tax benefits with depreciation. You can write off a lot of your business expenses, parts of your car, parts of your home, your cell phone, your internet. And so what I love to teach investors is how can we strategically buy real estate that fits your needs? So let me give you an example. Let's say that you are 24 years old, money's tight, and you're like, man, I want to quit. Like, I don't want to retire. I don't want to work. I want to retire. I don't want to work forever. That investor strategy is going to be a little bit different than someone who's 42 and maybe making a lot of money and seeing a lot of their paycheck go to taxes. And
Mm-hmm.
so what I like to do is I like to teach both of those investors what is the right strategy for their investing. Is it long-term buy and hold? Is it furnished rentals? Is it syndications? Is it flips? Is it wholesale? There's so many different things you can do in investing. but that doesn't mean that all of them are right for you. And
Right.
so let me break that down. So let's say a 24-year-old, let's say that they're making 55,000. What I'm going to tell them is that one, we need to get you making more money. So
Hmm.
maybe you need to maybe flip a house. I'm not a huge fan of flipping because it's another job, a job, but maybe
Yes.
that's a good job. Another good job in real estate investing would be wholesaling. You
Hmm.
learn how to analyze properties, you learn how to talk to sellers, you learn how to find deals. Maybe that would be a good idea. But let's say that they're like, "No, Sarah, I actually have 30,000 in the bank. I've worked during college, I've saved up my money." I would say, "Hey, then what I want you to do is I want you to what's called a house hack."
Yes.
So use the ability to put a lower down payment, which I don't know if you saw this, Ray, but Fannie just announced that you can now do a 5% down on a multifamily. So not using FHA, it's not an FHA, which is three and a
Mm.
half percent. You can go buy a duplex, triplex, or fourplex and put down 5%. So it's exactly what I would advise that 24-year-old to do. And
Right.
if they're like me and they're frugal, then if they get a two-bedroom apartment, heck, even get a roommate. Not that we want to have roommates. It's not very fun to have a roommate, but you know what is fun? Being completely financially free before 30. And
Yes.
so a little bit of delayed gratification.
Yes.
So in all of that, and obviously I would, advise a 24-year-old in more detail, but for the sake of time, that is me looking at real estate as a business. Is
Hmm.
we're looking at what are the needs, circumstances, and resources that this 24-year-old has, and how can real estate investing fit into their strategy of pursuing financial freedom through real estate investing.
Excellent. So you're looking at the situation of the person that you're speaking with, and you're tailoring your advice to their situation, whether they're 24, just starting off in their career, or 42, maybe they've been working for a number of years. And I would imagine you run into some people who are 42 who have been working for a number of years and for whatever reason haven't saved. Maybe they have a family, maybe life has happened. You never know what's
Yeah.
going on. People go through all sorts of stuff.
All sorts of stuff. And what I find is that a lot of people have less savings than you ever thought that they would. I think the media, or at least I feel this way, I feel like everybody's got more money than me. And then when you peel back the layers, you realize like, wow, people don't have that much savings.
Yes.
However, Ray, something's really unique about this time. Most people have equity in their property. And
Mm-hmm.
because prices have gone up, so one thing that I'm really good at is advising people how to utilize that equity to create more cash flow. So I think that's why I didn't set out to I have a coaching program, and I didn't set out to have my target audience be 55 and older. I'm in my early 30s. That
Hmm.
wasn't my target audience. But what
Right.
happened is because I went from about $1,000 a month in cash flow, which is pure profit after setting aside capital expenditures, maintenance, repairs, property management, vacancy. I'm very conservative when it comes to
Hmm.
investing. And I went from 1,000 a month to 8,000 a month in really about 6.5 months. And I think when people who are 55 or heck, even 45 and older, they're like, damn, I need that because I'm nowhere near being able to retire. And so
Right.
I need that cash flow quickly, like Sarah did. And so next thing I knew, a lot of my coaching students are older than I thought they were going to be.
Yeah, which is fine. You've developed expertise in that area, so why not share that? That works
Yeah.
very well. That works very well.
And a lot of them have good salaries. And so they have the ability to bring in a lot of cash. But like you mentioned, life has happened and they have a lot of expenses.
Yes. Yeah. I like what you have on your website. The way you phrase it is, my clients come to me because they want a bigger life.
Yeah.
Can you unpack that for us?
Yeah, I think that we often, what I say is we often should all over ourselves. We say, oh, I should climb the corporate ladder. I should go get an advanced degree. I should marry my girlfriend because, we've been dating for 7 years. I should have kids. I should. And what I want to tell people is like, do you want that? Like, what
Hmm.
what is a bigger life look like to you? I had a gentleman come up to me at a conference and he goes, it's pretty cool that you travel, but I got to be honest, I don't even like traveling. And I said,
Hmm.
that's great. I said, that's great.
Yes.
What do you like? And he's like, I don't know. He's like, I don't really have a hobby. I'm like, okay, but let's say that money was no issue. How would you spend a good weather Saturday? What would you do? And he
Mm.
goes, and he said, well, I used to be really into cycling. I
Hmm.
used to like want this specific road bike, and it was wild, Ray. Like he turned into a different person as he's explaining this road bike to me.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
your audience, I know nothing about bikes. I know nothing about road bikes. But it was so fascinating to hear this gentleman talk about. He's like, oh yeah, I would buy this bike and it does all of this and it weighs this much. And that would be my perfect Saturday. I said, great. That is your travel. When I talk about
Mm.
travel, I want you to hear cycling on a Saturday. I want you to
Yes.
hear the bike of your dreams. And so when I say that I want to help people have a bigger life, bigger could be anything. It could be
Hmm.
traveling, it could be paying for their kids' college, it could be spending less time with their kids. I don't know. Whatever bigger life means to them, that's what I want to
Right.
help people do.
They have to define it for themselves, define their why.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of pressure. I love that saying because it definitely helped me. I figured out why I was investing in real estate, and that helped everything fall into place. But the one thing that I caution everyone is that feels like a lot of pressure. And I think a lot of people feel like their why needs to be philanthropic. You guys, that's if you just want to be rich because you want to drive a nice car and eat nice food and maybe retire your spouse, there's nothing wrong with that. Like you
Hmm.
can live your life on your terms and it doesn't have to be some like grandiose why. It could just be like, I'm sick of worrying about money.
Hmm. Right, right, right. And they want time, freedom over their how they spend their time.
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. So I'll tell a quick story. I was in Croatia this summer. Funny that I talked about biking. I actually did a bike trip. Turns out I don't think I love biking, but I did a bike trip. It was actually a 120-mile bike trip, so it was no like
Hmm.
small feat. So I did a bike trip in Croatia. It was wildly hot, like almost miserably hot. This was
Hmm.
in July in the summer. I don't know what I was thinking. And I just was like, like I saw what I came to see in Croatia, and I really would love some cooler weather and hang out with my friends. And so I opened up Google Flights, which is my preferred like search engine for flight, and I
Yes.
found a 60 euro flight for that afternoon. Like the flight was in like 6 or 7 hours.
Yeah,
And I was
yeah.
like, screw it, I'm just gonna buy this. So I bought a flight to Munich, Germany, texted a friend that lives there, was like, take me to dinner. Let's meet for dinner.
Yeah.
And had the weekend in Munich. And what I loved about this is it didn't cost that much money. Like
Hmm.
60 euro is something that most of your listeners could spend and not even notice, right?
Right,
So it
right.
didn't cost that much money, but it did. It cost a lot of all of the time, decisions, research, and investment that I have been doing for the last, like actively investing for the last 5.5 years. But really, I started being interested in financial independence 11 years ago.
Yes, yes.
And it's because of all of that that I could make a decision on a Saturday. Full transparency, I was very hungover. And I was like, get me out of Croatia and let's go to Germany and of course drink more beer. And so and I got on a plane 6 hours later for 60 euro.
Yes.
And it's the ability to say yes to things that I really want. That is why I invested in real estate.
So the bottom line is because you've done a bunch of preparation, I'd go back 11 years. You said you first became interested in financial independence 11 years ago. And then
Yep.
5 years ago was when you started to act on it. So there was a gap between
Yes.
interest and then massive action, massive aggressive action where you were moving forward on it. And so for the
Absolutely.
past 5 years or so, you were preparing everything you needed to prepare so that you could be sitting in Croatia and say, I think I'll go to Munich. Or rather, not even that. I think I want to go somewhere. You pulled up Google Flights and said, where do I want to go today? And you found a flight to
Yeah.
Munich for 60 euro, but it took a long time. It took 5 years to prepare yourself to get to that point. And that's what
Absolutely.
Sarah Weaver means when she says on her website, live a bigger life.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Okay, I love the way that comes together. And you taught English in Korea.
I did. So that was my like second job after university. I
Yes.
graduated from the University of Kansas with 2 degrees, international studies with an emphasis in Italian, and mass communication, a journalism degree. And I, of course, wanted to be an international journalist.
Yes.
And so I got really, truly my dream job. I worked at Sports Illustrated,
Oh,
and it was a oh Ray, it was dream job. Like
yeah,
first
yeah.
week on the job, I got flown down, I think to Miami for a bowl game and was
Mm-hmm.
like in the locker room. And I'm like more or less the same age as some of these football players. It was so fun.
Yeah,
Loved
yes.
my job. My second week on the job, I got flown to London to work on a passion project from one of the photographers. So it didn't necessarily have anything to do with SI, but
Mm-hmm.
everything to do with journalism and why I
Yes.
loved what I did. And I got to go to London. And
Yes, yes.
guys, I'm a lower middle class Kansas girl. Like this life of travel and like there was no luxury, there was no travel in my life before this. And so
Mm-hmm.
that first job that I got sent to London, I mean, that was like winning the lottery. But something interesting happened. I hated the work. I hated it.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, I didn't like the culture. I didn't like so many things about it. And instead of saying, "Oh, well, I should stick with this because it would look better on my resume,"
Mm-hmm.
I quit. I found an alternative, and the alternative was to teach English in South Korea.
Yes. All right. So that's how you ended up in South Korea. You found an opportunity. Were you looking for an opportunity to teach English abroad, or do you wanted to go to South Korea? What drove that?
Yeah, so I wanted to make money because my student loans were coming due. I paid for
Yes.
college by myself, and my student loans, like that grace period was about to end. And I was like, okay, well, I need a paying job, but I really want to live abroad. Like, I really,
Mm-hmm.
really want to live abroad. And I should say, before the job at Sports Illustrated, I actually had an internship in Munich, which is why I
Mm.
have friends there. So it comes
Yes,
full
yes.
circle. So I actually had an internship in Munich. That was my first job or internship after university. And I loved living abroad. I loved the challenges that come with it. I loved that you're like in multicultural dinners on a regular Tuesday. I just loved everything about living abroad, but I needed to make money. And
Mm-hmm.
so teaching English as like a native English speaker, it's a great job for someone, especially someone that feels a little bit lost. I'll admit I felt a little bit like, well, wait a minute, why I should have loved working for Sports Illustrated. Like I
Mm.
should be this great journalist. You know, that's my path that I thought I was on, but I didn't like it. And so teaching
Mm-hmm.
English is really good for someone that's feeling a little lost. And South Korea came because I knew people who had done it. And
Right.
so really using my journalism degree, I interviewed, I mean, probably dozens and dozens of people who had taught abroad, and all
Mm.
signs pointed to South Korea.
Yes. So your journalism background gives you that ability to ask questions and listen attentively and connect the dots between what people are telling you and perhaps determine the difference between a lie and the truth or something like that. Maybe you're looking at that. I'd imagine all of
That
us.
that that and the other thing that's really interesting is that journalists in newspaper, you're writing at a third grade level. So my first like writing gig when I was an undergrad was actually at the state capitol in Topeka. So I was
Mm-hmm.
taking like complex bills and complex political issues and explaining it at a third grade level. You guys, third
Mm-hmm.
graders are what, like 8 to 10 year olds?
Yes. Yeah, yes.
And so I also gained the skill of explaining complex issues at a third grade level. And what's wild, Ray, is that now that I teach real estate investors, that's probably one of the skills I use the most is taking
Yes.
something really complex like cash on cash return and depreciation and investing strategies and all of all the research that you need to do and explaining it in a way that an 8-year-old can understand.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And then when you get that across, people trust you more, I'd imagine.
Yeah, and I think I'm also doing the work. There's nothing wrong with coaches. I think coaches are needed. But one of the things that I'm really proud of is that I see myself as a mentor. I'm in the
Mm.
trenches. I'm doing the work. I'm also buying real estate. I'm also frustrated, when I'm looking for deals. I feel all the same emotions that my investors and my clients feel because I'm doing the same thing.
And you're doing it all remotely.
Yes. Yeah, which is, I think people think it's harder, but I like it better because I could be in Mexico, looking at photos of a roof from my handyman in Iowa, and I don't need to get on a plane or get in a car and go look at some roof when he can just send me photos of it.
Yes. So clearly, you've been able to develop relationships with people who are your boots on the ground so that you can
Yes.
travel, they can send you photos. Of course, the internet has opened up a whole lot of this. It costs nothing to
Yeah.
send photos or even videos, right? And even this call we're doing now, I had no idea what part of the world you were in. You happen to be in the United States, or so you say. I mean, who knows? So it's all good. The technology plus your background plus your decision to make action, all of those have come together to make you be successful as you are. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
That's
Yeah.
wonderful. This is going so quick. We're coming towards the end of our time together. I'm really enjoying this. I'm really enjoying interacting with you and learning more about, what you do and how you're traveling and how you're investing in everything. Let me ask you one, well, there are a few questions. We're just winding down right now, but what would you say is the most important skill you need to use in order to manage these properties remotely? Of all of your skills, of everything you've built up over the years, what is the number one
Yeah.
skill you need in order to manage remotely?
Man, well, the first thing that comes to mind, but it might be more of a joke, is patience. I think you need a
Mm.
lot of patience. But a tangible thing that your listeners can take is that I have systems for everything. And so
Mm.
I think, but I think people are sick of hearing systems and processes, systems and processes. So what does that actually mean? What it actually means is that I have a spreadsheet that has every address. So I own 19 units. So I own 19 units in 4 states, and it
Yes.
has every address and then every piece of information that you would ever want to know about the property: the
Mm.
lockbox code, the tenant's name, the handyman that I prefer to call right away, the cleaner, what type of fridge does it have, when was it replaced, how's the AC unit, what's the last time I had it serviced. All of that information that can't live in my brain. That's
Yes.
impossible. And so all of it lives in a spreadsheet that my virtual assistant has access to, that my property manager has access to. My property manager is in-house. There's someone on my team. I decided to self-manage all of my units because I'm insane. And all of that information lives in a spreadsheet. Another spreadsheet that I think is really important, and I know, so I'm going to diving deeper
No,
into
go
your
for it.
question, but another spreadsheet that is absolutely necessary for, really, even if you own a rental property in your neighborhood, you need to have what's called the vendor list. So sure, I have my plumber and handyman, and I have all those people in my phone. Funny, one of them just texted me. And I have all of those people in my phone. But what is so important is for it to all live in a spreadsheet, because you may remember like who replaced your dishwasher last month, but in 2 years, when that dishwasher starts leaking, you're not going to remember that. You're just not.
Right.
And
Right.
so all of that information lives in a spreadsheet. And so I don't just have one plumber. I have about 7 or 8 plumbers because my favorite plumber is always busy because he's the best plumber. And so
Hmm.
in a pinch, I'm going to need to go down the list and call the next one and call the next one and call the next
Yes.
one. And I get all of that data, all of these referrals from other real estate investors, from my real estate agent, from
Right.
Facebook groups, from talking to people. And that list just grows and grows and grows over time.
Right. And you want to know who to call, or you want to have made a decision about who to call before you have the emergency. Dig
Yes,
the
in an
well
ideal
before you.
situation, exactly. But don't get me wrong, Ray. Like, I on my Kansas City list, because that's the property I've owned the longest. I have an arborist. I have a foundation guy. I have people that I didn't even know existed. I didn't even know you needed an arborist. Like, what the
Yeah,
heck is an
yeah.
arborist? But the longer you own property, you realize, like, oh yeah, you need a guy to clean your gutters, and that's probably different than the guy that cuts your lawn. So you need
Yep.
a guy for everything.
Sure, sure. And you've lined all those up. Great.
Yeah.
Now, what is it that you're reading right now? What podcasts are you listening to right now? What do you do to sharpen your saw and make sure you stay sharp?
Oh, that's a great question. I really like to hear from other entrepreneurs. And so I am spending a lot of time in other entrepreneurial groups. So one of them in particular is called the Dynamite Circle.
Mm,
So I'm following like what are these 7 and 8 figure businesses doing that I should be implementing in my business. As much as I
hmm.
love real estate, I spend all day listening and talking about real estate. So what I'm really craving is hearing from entrepreneurs as well as really, really wealthy people. Like,
Hmm.
what can someone that's worth 100 million teach me to get me to 10 million faster? I may never get to 100 million. That's okay. But I'm pretty sure I'm going to get to a net worth of 10 million. And
Hmm.
what would someone, 5, 10, 20 steps ahead of me tell me to do right now? And those are the types of
Yes.
information that I'm craving.
Yep. I have a mentor who says success leaves clues. So we follow those
Absolutely.
clues. Yeah, we follow those clues. Then finally, how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, the best way is my website, Sarah D. Weaver. If they want direct asset access to me, also message me on Instagram. I love hearing from people. So if you guys heard me on the podcast, like shoot me a message, say, oh my gosh, I love Ray, and I really enjoyed what you guys talked about on this episode. I would love to hear from the audience.
Wonderful. We'll make sure we include those links in the show notes. Sarah D. Weaver, it has been a pleasure speaking with you today on ROI Clear.
Thank you so much.